Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome. Let's sit together for a few moments in silence. Let's bring the hands together. And setting our foundation before we begin the formal practice by recommitting to the yogic path. And I'll share the words of a meditation teacher, Stephen Batchelor, who uses languaging that I appreciate so much. And if you feel it speaks to you, then utilize that as well, or create something that's more personal for you. And his words are, I vow to awaken for the benefit of all beings. I appreciate its value, and I feel it is possible in this life as I am. And we can seal that intention in by bowing if that feels appropriate. And just sitting upright again for a few moments with the eyes closed. And before we begin the asana practice, let's remember that just as important as what we practice is how we practice, our inner alignment. So keeping a keen eye on observing the reactive patterns as we go through the practice. That can enable us to free up the constricting ways of being. The inner abodes of the awakened ones is often described as a vast awareness that is expansive and unbound by circumstances. So as we go through the tools to open the body, we can begin to free our minds from clinging to the ideas we hold about how we think things should be, and also creating the aversion then to how things are. So let's watch this tendency towards craving and aversion to diminish the constrictive control they can have over us, and the shielding of pristine awareness. So developing compassionate attention to the habits of the body and mind, with an interest in freeing both. So we begin the asana practice in the yin style, both to create more suppleness at the core and encourage our awareness into the center. So let's bring our feet together in butterfly pose, like Baddha Konasana, but extending the heels quite forward of your pelvis. You can sit your hips a little higher than your feet, up on a blanket or a cushion, particularly if the hips are challenged in forward bends and they tend then to recede back when you intend to come forward. We want to have this pelvic tilt available to us, and higher hips assist that. So just with hands on the ankles, and again the eyes closed for a moment, let's begin with concentration on the breath, a primary anchor throughout the practice of asana. And remembering that the tattva, or the guiding principle of all hatha yoga, is the increased distribution of prana flow. And we can assist this mobilization of energy through ujjayi breathing. This slow down diaphragmatic breath with a soft sound in the back of the throat, kind of like waves beginning under the ocean. Not a strong projected sound, but even from beginning to end, and the length about 5 seconds or so for both an inhale and then match the exhale to that same length. And then if you're also interested in the practice of Mula Bandha, we can encourage this prana flow toward the core of the body and the purification of these central channels through this subtle lift at the base of the chakra system, the mula. So take your awareness to the perineum, just a little diamond-shaped muscle between the anus and the genitals, and feel how you can press down on it, or you can lightly pull in, like when you try not to go to the bathroom. Mula Bandha, or to seal or bind the energy there from dissipating outward, is when on inhale and exhale, so it's a static contraction, we just lightly lift in at the region of the perineum. And yogi suggests this encourages the prana flow toward the center and allows the apana then to potentially be more upward drawing. And I encourage you to study more about subtle body anatomy so that this practice can come to life for you. And I need to assume that you have been practicing and studying yoga, asana, and philosophy for a few years for us to practice together in this session. And I'll use the language of the yogic, Taoist, and Buddhist systems for descriptive purposes to bring insights to the way that we can practice. And so now, in taking the first yin pose, and I'll describe the practice through my understanding as taught by Paul Grilly, we can think of it just having 3 simple tenets And the first is just taking the suggested shape or asana. So here our feet are in front of us in butterfly. And then finding your appropriate edge. So if you want to increase sensation now on your next exhale, you can come forward and just come to where the sensation is not neutral, but it's tolerable. It's not extreme either. The second tenet then, once we've taken the shape that we feel is appropriate for us personally, non-comparative with others or with your own body even yesterday or the last time you practiced, then the second aspect is that we become still and we allow our muscles to become soft. So we're not pulling ourselves further into it. We're not holding ourselves deeper in it. So there's a relaxed quality. And the structure is just folded over the bones in this shape. If you have any neck or upper back challenges, and this is tugging too much to drop your head, and the head is not resting in the feet, then you can find ways to support your head, either bending the elbows as they sit in the feet so your chin can rest in your hands, or if you want to be lower, stacking the fists, putting your forehead down on them, or even using a pillow between your feet and forehead. The third aspect of this practice, which you've already begun, is to hold for longer periods than other styles. So we'll do 5-minute increments in each pose. So 3 tenets: appropriate edge in the shape, becoming still and passive, and holding for time. Meanwhile, you're flowing with the Ujjayi breathing, attending to that inward lift at the root, at the mula. And as the sensations intensify over time, saturating these areas with breath through flowing your attention into them. Now, in the same way that Hatha Yoga from India utilizes a phrasing that describes polar opposites of ha and ta, or receptive and active elements, being joined into a harmonious union through a yoking or yoga, the Taoist system from China uses the language of yin and yang to reflect on these polar opposites of receptivity and activity. And it's said that when yin and yang are in balance, one is in harmony with the Tao, or the universal mystery of life. So I'll use these Taoist terms, yin and yang, instead of ha and ta, to describe and investigate how we affect various layers of our being during yoga asana. So those elements that are described as yin would be those characteristics which are more yielding, less mobile, cooler, lower or more earth-directed, feminine, and more hidden or toward the center or core of things. Conversely, elements that would be described as yang would be those that are more active, elastic, warmer, masculine, higher, and more obvious or near the surface. We'll inhale now and come up. Stretching out the knees in front of us. On the exhale, and then let's do saddle pose next. So let's bring our feet back. And you may want to have more padding than just a mat for the yin practice. You won't need your sticky mats until we shift to the yang practice. So you can put a blanket across it or have a cushion if you feel bone to mat is too hard of contact. So we sit on the heels in Vajrasana, the heels just on either side of the sit bones. And then we'll come back. These next two poses are sacral releases. They really assist the sacrum, which is pulled down away from its home in the lumbar with all of our chair sitting in cars and planes and restaurants. And it allows it to be freed up and in. So we're going to go back to increase that shape and affect those tissues around the sacrum. So if you're all right with coming onto your elbows, if not, just stay on your hands and just lean back. You needn't tuck your tailbone or squeeze your thighs together. Just let your legs be relaxed. If being on your elbows is fine, you can come onto the top of your head or onto your back. Saddle pose, we call it in the yin style. If a knee is resistant to going back in this shape, then you can do half saddle and just stretch that leg out, more like a half version of Supta Virasana. If both knees can't sit back in this way, then the next pose we'll do, you can do 2 rounds of and just come onto your belly and take like a sphinx pose with the hands around the elbows to also affect sacral tissues without any risk to the knees. So once you're in the pose, then the 3 tenets apply. We get to a position we feel is tolerable, not risky, no sharp electrical pain. Dull, achy pain is to be expected. We breathe into that because we're asking more of the tissues than usual. Then we get still, we soften, and we hold for time. So in being reminded of these descriptive terms that represent polar opposites in nature, we can recognize that we too are composed of yin and yang tissues, yin and yang emotions, yin and yang ways of being and behavior. So how this can benefit us as yoga enthusiasts is to recognize that how we do these asanas will affect yin tissues or yang tissues depending on how we take the poses. So if yin is a term described for those things which are more restive and closer to the core, quieter, then we could say anatomically that this describes the connective tissues around our joints, those tendons and ligaments that connect muscle to bone or bone to bone. Conversely, we can think of muscle tissue, which is more near the surface and more elastic, more mobile, enjoys activity, as being more yang tissue. So a yoga practice that targets its effects at the joints and is soft or passive in the muscles, we could call a yin practice, whereas one that involves rhythmic movement and engages muscle to protect the joints, we could say, is a yang practice. So we're starting our yoga asana sequencing with the yin style. Yin tissues don't respond to pressure or exercise in the same way that yang tissues. A guiding principle of any exercise is bringing appropriate use or stress to certain tissues, and then, if appropriate, rest is given later. The body automatically moves into its repair response, where it sends circulation, nutrients, blood flow, prana flow to the area that's been used, thereby enabling it to become more usable in the future. Hence the need for repetition to increase strength and mobility. But as we know from our exploration of yoga asana that engages muscle, we constantly have to be aware of protecting this deeper, less elastic connective tissue when we move around. Because these yin tissues don't have the same fluid content, so they don't stretch like muscles do. And if we move aggressively or inattentively, we can tear or damage them. This is why so much time is spent in any good yoga class on proper alignment, for safety and for more freedom and ease and consciousness in the body. So if yin tissues don't stretch, then what are we doing? Well, in a moment, we're going to come out. So just take 3 more breaths here. And by the way, if ever you feel the need to come out before the timer, if it starts to feel unintegral and you feel anxiety or like it's risky, then please honor that feedback. And we'll inhale and come up. Use your elbows, your hands, your stomach muscles, because your back has been quite passive and we don't want to try and use the back to get up. And then come forward on your belly and just leave your legs out behind you like a forward shavasana for a couple of moments. This will help stretch out the knees from the last pose. Whereas a regular counter pose might be downward facing dog after Supta Vajrasana, we want to stay in the yin mode here in this first hour and then shift to those other ways of practice. So all the while, your concentration is with Ujjayi breath, with lubricating the whole body through your attention flowing into the areas where sensation is strong and when it's subtle, like now. The area that you just taxed through that last pose is more receptive, more absorbent through having utilized it. So continue to send your breath into where it was just intense. Refresh the area by continual attention. So if yin tissues, without their high fluid content, don't stretch per se, we can still create space and circulation in these areas through utilizing the tissues in a safe, consistent manner. We're not interested in excessive hypermobility, but we are interested in more range of motion at the core, which will enable us to sit still comfortably longer for our meditations and give us more freedom of movement in our yang practice and throughout activities in our life. So yin tissues, although they aren't interested in being exercised like yang tissues, which love rhythmic movement because that pumps up their fluid content, and so they, through use, become stronger and more mobile, more flexible. Yin tissues, on the other hand, require a yin kind of activity, as we're doing. So let's come into another back bend now to still be giving attention to the sacral region, which tends to really stagnate on anyone, even those with really hypermobile elbows and knees. Everybody's sacral and lower back area can get rigid through just lifestyle. So you can have your hands around your elbows or out in front hands like a sphinx, or we call it seal in the yin, which is a straight-armed cobra. Just walk your hands in so that you rest in the bones. You don't bend the arms, or that starts to engage the muscle tissue and you can't hold it for long periods. You turn the hands a little out, and then you just drape your navel toward the floor. Instead of pulling your navel towards your spine and hugging your tailbone to the ground, which we do in more yang styles, here you allow and exaggerate the lumbar curve. Hugging in your buttocks and inner thighs is fine if that feels appropriate to protect your back. But we do want to be relaxed in the back muscles, the erector spinae and the serratus and latissimus muscles of the back, so that we target the effect of this pose into the longitudinal ligaments which run along your spine line between the vertebrae. If you get any kind of shooting pain, electrical pain, feeling of nerve pressure, then you're too deep in the back bend. And see if coming to Sphinx, or even on your ribs with just your arms outstretched, relieves that sensation. Okay. Eyes or gaze, the drishti, can be just downward and still, like an open eye meditation. Or you can close the eyes if that doesn't cause a dull, sleepy kind of consciousness. We want to stay with sharp clarity of mind. And like a spinal wash, just draping your attention downward on the inhale, like you're lubricating the whole spine line, down to the mula, subtle lifting in, if that practice is of interest to you, and then an exhale where you rise up. Toward the chest. It will prevent you from collapsing the chest at the end of exhale when the air is flushed out. Keep that kind of buoyancy, that upward lift in the heart space. So although we usually associate exercise with movement, that is particular to yang activity. Here, while we're being still, we are actually exercising tissues through these stable pressure on the space between the bones. We're affecting the yin tissues, which require static long holds, more like stretching taffy slowly. You know, it'll just snap if you move it quickly, but if you slowly pull it apart, connective tissue is a little more like that. But it's living tissue, it's not inert like taffy, so it also has this pulsation running through it. In yogic subtle body anatomy, we've heard about and understand that this interest in asana is to mobilize this inner currents or prana flow through the nadis, similar to the idea of moving qi through the meridians in Chinese acupuncture theories. But interestingly, some of the major roadblocks to this qi flow is our joints. And if this highly elaborate information system that's within us is linked up to the health of our organs, and the major roadblocks occur at those junctures where there's connective tissue, then it can be highly motivating for us to recognize that when we take a practice like this of still held postures, we're stimulating the qi flow through these regions of connective tissue to balance and stabilize the organ system as well. An imbalance in the meridian system reflects an imbalance in the organ system. So remembering this and understanding these concepts can motivate our practice, can help concentrate our attention through the interest in bringing a core awareness. Because taking the pose and creating the pressure is one way to mobilize qi flow, just as needles are another way. But the two other ways are through the concentration of your mind and the flow of your breath. So every time we get distracted, and inevitably we all do, we're hoping to train up a non-reactive awareness that we were distracted, so free of assessment or judgment, we just tug our attention back to body consciousness, energy awareness, and particularly in the yin, to surrendering into sensations, not fighting them, not gripping inwardly to hold ourselves in the pose, but draping more, softening, yielding. These are yin qualities of our being that are cultivated in a yin practice. And now it's 5 minutes, so we'll exhale. And you can bend the elbows and then move them to the sides and come down for a few breaths, flat to the floor. And just notice how the temperature now may cool some. It warms up the longer you're in the pose. So sensitizing yourself to just the naked truth of sensations as they move through us. And then with the hands underneath you, inhale slowly back to child's pose. You may take a few breaths as you're taking the sacrum the other direction. Just relax the forehead down and the buttocks towards the feet. Still breathing all in and around that sacral region. Notice if the length of breath is still the same as when you're challenged in the pose. So that even when we're in a more neutral shape, we're interested in keeping our attention crisp. Let's bring the hands just forward for a moment to take the knees wide, and the next pose being wide knee child's pose. So similar to what you were in a moment ago, but your knees as wide as they're willing to go. You're still sitting back into your feet and then resting on your elbows or down on your chest. Appropriately stimulating or utilizing the tissues of the inner thighs and groins. Well, one of the benefits to this style of practice that was noticed and vocalized by a yogi named Hiroshi Motoyama, a teacher of mine, but more of Paul Grilly's for many years, was a blending of the understanding of which particular meridians are affected by which poses. And there's 6 main meridians linked up to 6 major organs that run through the legs. The yin part of the body is really the lower part, between the navel and the knees, so most of the poses will target that region. And the 6 major meridians in the legs are simple to remember. There's 3 in the inner leg, which is being affected by the pose you're in now. And that would be the spleen, the kidneys, and the liver. Really important organs for overall health. Across the top of the leg is the stomach meridian, which we affected in both saddle and seal. Along the outer rim of the hip and leg is the gallbladder meridian, and the back of the leg is the urinary bladder. So all of these seated floor poses are gently stimulating and tugging these areas which promote chi flow through them, which help balance and nurture the organ system, which when I heard that highly motivated my practice. Although I was already interested after a few months of practice when I noticed how dramatic the change was in sitting meditation. That core pockets of holding were being released when I added this practice. No need to give up the other practices. It's not like there's a hierarchy when one is interested in understanding yin and yang elements. They're complementary. And so I simply felt the need to balance my yang, muscular, strong practice with this yielding, long-held, surrendering practice. We do it prior to the yang because I find when I do it after the yang, there's benefits either way, but I'm quite warmed up, so my muscles are so juiced and stretched that they take the bulk of the pose. And I don't feel that I could get such a dramatic moisture to the ligaments if my muscles are warmed. For the last minute of this pose, come to your elbows. And just as a way of further elaborating on the difference of yin and yang tissues, just take your left forefinger with your right thumb and forefinger and leave it really passive and gently pull the finger away from the hand and see how you get space in the joint, how you get a little dimple right in the region between the finger and the hand. Then do it a second time, making your finger taut. Engage the muscles and then pull. And you'll see how the bones are held close together and there's no space that comes. It's the muscle's job, when engaged, to protect the joints, so it keeps the bones close together. And if this is our spine and we're doing drop backs and handstand drop overs, we really need to be aware of engaging our muscles so that we're protecting those vulnerable places in the joints. But if we leave the muscles soft, as we're doing now, and we put pressure lightly to the structure, and we hold for long periods, we create more space, and over time, we regrow the connective tissue, which allows it to be more pliable, more usable in the future. And so that's the idea with the yin. It's not like one session we're stretching them, but over time through use, we're regrowing them, adding our chi flow. So come up onto your hands now. You can come away from your heels with your knees coming back together, and then child's pose. And then come forward onto your hands, and we'll take Gomukhasana, or called shoelace in the yin style, where you just slide one knee in front of the other and then separate the feet. Choose the knee on top of the more open hip for you, and then sit back. This yogi I mentioned, this incredible adept, Dr. Motoyama, suggests that if we do the more open side first, and increase then the circulation there, it assists the tighter side because you'll already have stimulated more energy and chi flow in the system. So if your right hip tends to be more mobile, you have the right knee on top, or the opposite. You can have the hips a little higher up, both to protect the bottom knee, you don't want it to feel torqued at all, and to assist this pelvic tilt that's necessary in seated forward bends. Inhale, and if you find that the sensation is already somewhat strong, you know it'll intensify with time, you may not need to go any further, and you just sit upright. Or if you feel you can tolerate more sensation with no stress, then you come to your appropriate edge. If our pelvis is moved back, then we don't utilize the main prop of the yin practice, which is truly gravity. If we're leaning back, then we won't feel the pressure so much on the external hip rotators, which is what we're intending in this pose, and instead we'll put undue pressure on the SI joint. The piriformis will just then press down on the SI, on the sciatic nerve, which can cause or aggravate already current sciatica. This is why seated postures are to be eliminated when you're in the throes of sciatica. Seated forward bends are particularly difficult for that condition. So if you are sitting upright, you want to be with the hips tilted slightly forward toward the femurs, front hip bones, top of the pelvis. And if you're forward, which is fine, you just want to make sure you don't take the pressure in the knees, but keep your weight back into your sit bones. If your bottom knee experiences any torque at all, then you can do it with the bottom leg stretched straight out and relieve all risk to that leg and knee. So we attempt to keep our attention anchored into the breath, anchored into the body. and stroking sensations like a sensitive masseuse who doesn't have an agenda. If they're skillful and compassionate, their interest is on bringing nurturance to the areas that have stagnated. We can practice with our own bodies in this same vein, appreciating our form, and through attending to it, stroking it, by taking these poses, draping your breath in there, we can stimulate a gratitude, a tolerance for the body's changing conditions, and insight into the way sensations are impermanent and pass through, moment to moment, shifting. If, on the other hand, we have an agenda and an expectation of performance, we will diminish compassion and be more obsessed with a goal. This can happen in yin or yang style. Because truly, how you practice your yoga is how you do anything. And probably how you do everything. So cultivating skillful means and compassionate attention is a wonderful gift of a consistent yoga practice. If your sensations are intolerable and yet you're enduring them, and there's kind of an inner hardening, but you're holding anyway, we're misunderstanding the benefit of asana. We are closing down chi flow in that inner restriction instead of allowing its migration through the system. So always an appropriate edge needs to be allowed. Inhale and we'll come up. We'll lean back away from the knees as we take the legs out. If a leg falls asleep in the midst of the practice, come out sooner. Get the chi flowing again, and then you can come back into it. And we'll switch sides. Putting the top knee as much above the bottom knee as possible. Pulling the flesh back from the sit bones and lining the sit bones up behind the knees. It's easy for the top knee to pull that sit bone more forward and then to come forward. But we want to ground it right back in line with the other one. If there's space between your legs, then put cushion underneath between them. Because when the bone feels a surface, the muscles can let go. And remember, with the finger example, we want muscles to be passive, so we target the place between the bones. Hips higher up can help that tilt. Take a breath in, and then either just stay upright or start to lean forward until you observe a tolerable edge, knowing full well that being here 5 minutes will naturally increase the edge with time. You may not have to make it strong in the first moment or so. It's also decompressing for the lower back, as long as the pelvis is tilted forward and you're not pressing back into the SI. So relax the back muscles if it's a forward bend for you. Relax the belly and the groins. This pose benefits 4 different meridian channels. The 3 in the interior mentioned before, the spleen, kidneys, liver, because of the pressure put on them. And then the gallbladder along the outer hip, down the outer thigh. So each pose we take is like a little mini meditation period. A commitment that between when we start and the timer, as long as it feels safe, not sharp electrical pain, we commit that in this challenge of observing sensations that are not neutral, they're no doubt intense, that inside this experience we attend to how we respond. We attend to how the breath is flowing. And if it's jittery or jagged, then we've pushed too far too soon for a natural tolerance. And we need to back up so the chi flow is encouraged. If we're clinging to ideas of how flexible we'd like to be, then we'll ignore the feedback and create suffering, inner tension, and diminish awareness. So we watch these clinging habits of mind, particularly in the yin in the morning, when you're not warmed muscularly. Similarly, if we develop aversion to the limits of the body, then also we create suffering. We harbor resentment. We create an inner war with ourselves. And these ways of being inside go unnoticed throughout the activities and moments of our life. So we have an opportunity in the yoga practice where it's safe, unthreatening, to view these habits of how we are with the body and cultivate more skillful ways of being, utilizing the tools of the practice and watching the habits of the mind. So mindfulness is a way of being that is allowing. It's highly alert, but at the same time not resisting what it notices. It's non-resistant. So you find an edge in the pose, instead of resisting it and pushing further, you even slightly back off. So it's a compassionate use of posture to stimulate circulation and relieve stagnation. And if you're forward, we'll inhale and come up. And we'll take the legs out straight. And then take a seated straddle, or dragonfly pose in the yin practice. Taking the legs wide, leaving the legs passive. I know we're used to training in drawing the femurs down, the quadriceps lift, and flexing the feet. But in the yin style, we just leave the legs relaxed. We'll come forward on the front edge of the sit bones, and if that is enough edge, you stay with that. If you feel you could go further, then come down to your elbows. If you still have one more edge, then you can come all the way down onto your chest and rest your forehead. Or you can take the arms out to the sides and turn the head down. So this way of practicing through our devotion rather than our will, our dedication rather than our strict discipline, can remind us to remain mindful each day, to beginner's mind, in other words, and that innocence of dropping into the body with interest and attention, and freeing up our expectation and our attachment to results. This is mentioned profusely in the yoga scriptures as counsel to how we practice these postures. So as you're in the straddle splits, you're no doubt having some sensation in the inner knees, because we're gently pulling the bones apart there, which will stimulate chi flow more toward the knees, which helps in our seated meditation postures. But if it's something you're not used to, and there's a strong sensation there, you can put pillows underneath the knees, as well as protect the inner thighs and hamstrings from being overstretched. Now, muscles do stretch in the yin practice, just as ligaments and connective tissue get circulation and some moisture in the yang practice. Both are affected in both. We're talking here about a matter of degrees. Connective tissue needs longer held poses to slowly stimulate their regrowth. And so that's why the yin practice targets them more directly. And it allows for a safe way of creating space between the bones. Because we're slow, we're conscious, we're not moving so readily. Let's inhale now and come up. And with the hands behind, we can slide one foot in and then the other, facing each other again, and taking next the laying spinal twist, where we take one leg out straight, and the hip that was more open for you, bend that knee and twist over. You can put the opposite hand on the knee as it comes over. So if you have the right knee bent, you can take your right arm and draw it up along your ear line, and then relax the elbow. And that will be one of the poses that stimulates the connective tissue up around your shoulder and chest area. If the elbow and hand are in the air, you can put a cushion underneath them. Find where the arm can rest so that you feel a gentle tug on the tissues. And if you angle your bent knee directly along the hip line and maybe even a little bit lower than it, then it becomes a nice yin pose for the SI, the sacroiliac joint. Then Ujjayi breath here, drawing in at the root or Mula Bandha. The eyes steady and soft or closed. And the attention swimming along the central canal, the sushumna, luminous artery in the center of the subtle body system, where you can assist in joining the inner vayus or winds of prana and apana. If we allow our inhale to feel directed through our mind downward toward the mula, and our exhale to spring from the mula upward, apana coming towards prana. So inhaling down as your diaphragm does, and exhaling up, same direction the diaphragm takes on an out-breath. And then just the simplicity of applying the 3 tenets. You're in an appropriate shape for yourself that's not neutral, but not extreme. You become still and then soft. You're not pushing your knee down and internally using muscle to get deeper in the shape. And then remaining still for time, for these 5-minute intervals or these mini meditation periods. And in this stillness of a yin atmosphere, heightening deliberate mindfulness, which then can lead to spontaneous mindfulness. So a non-reactive awareness of their moment-to-moment breath and experience. And particularly in the yin, no inner struggle, no inner friction with the limits of the body. Cultivating an attitude of respect towards ourselves and potentially then for life and all aspects of it. And relaxing the ego control of manipulating our moments, of resisting reality as it is. And Yogi suggests this inner alignment has the potential to promote the grace of unconditional awareness, regardless of conditions, of pristine awareness. Whether we feel injured or agile. Inhaling up center. You really feel what that posture affects by moving out of it, back to neutral, and then taking the other side. So as the knee goes over, the bent knee side, that same arm reaches up. Usually we just take it to the side, but if we take it up, then we gently pull the bones apart in the shoulder. We can affect stimulation of circulation to the tissues of the chest and breast and underarm. So if there's been any trauma to those regions, the healing potential of prana, of chi, can be stimulated there again. If you turn your head away from the arm, you'll notice how it intensifies the feeling in the shoulder. If you turn your head toward the arm, you'll probably feel it a little lower at the upper back. So toward the arm or away, little different effect. And so you see which way holding your head affects the tissues that you want to affect right now. or alternate your head halfway through. And particularly watching in the yin practice the tendency to want to do something with the pose, to make it stronger or deeper or more intense or less intense, or that most of our waking hours, our consciousness is filtered through that agitation, that the moment as it is isn't enough. So we'll fix it somehow, we'll manipulate, we'll alter. And although that is very skillful, when we've re-educated ourselves to engage in skillful activity, it can become compulsive and prevent clear perceptions and insights from piercing through. So we can utilize the quiet time to actually turn the mind not only toward the breath and sensations, but to watching the habits of the emotions and mind as well, and not being carried so easily by their fragmented streams. As soon as we're floating away on some idea, just look into the essence of the mind, one's own clarity and vastness. And immediately you're catapulted into the eternal moment. Like hardened ice that has just been warmed by the sun. Immediately melt that distracted, constricted nature upon noticing. This melting, this cultivation of moment-to-moment attention is not passive at all. Yes, your body is soft, you're in the pose passively, but the attention is active. Inhale and come back to center. Center your weight on the sacrum and spine and bring both knees into the chest. And rocking back and forth a few times, and on the third time sitting up. And we'll transition from the yin to the yang with some simple pranayama, breathing practice, to stimulate the pingala, or active yang side, to be motivated towards mobility and activity now. So you can take the right hand, put the pinky to the left towards your hand and bend the ring finger. And the first two fingers then and the thumb can just bend out of the way. And with your ring finger pressing on your left nostril, so you're closing your yin, Ida, nadi, take 10 breaths in and out of the right side. The pingala nadi then is emphasized, purified. brought prana towards to assist in active mode next. If both nostrils feel quite clogged, then just close the left side slightly to emphasize the right. And just 2 more breaths here. And pulsing at about 5 seconds for each. Maybe the exhale a little longer. And then we'll bring the hand down and establish your Ujjayi breath now. Do 3 rounds. The sound, the depth, and the direction of breath attended to. Breathing down on inhale, engaging the mula lift, and breathing up on exhale. The constant hold at the root will cause a slight drawing back and in at the lowest part of the lower belly. So on inhale, you're not poofing out the belly. The inhale comes in and fills the top first and makes its way down. And then we'll maintain this breath awareness and move into Uttanasana, or standing forward bend. We'll come forward with our feet hip width, taking any cushions out of the way, and then inhale the hips up, hands around the elbows, hanging forward. Let's start with a bent knee forward bend to emphasize lengthening in the lower back. We'll stroke the hamstrings, then gradually we'll plant the feet with the toes spread and the outer edges of the feet facing straight ahead. And as your face is down, you can take a look at the knees so that they're facing straight ahead like your ankles rather than folding in, which can be a tendency when we're doing bent knee poses. Just straight ahead knees. Let the weight come just a little forward of the heels so your hips feel aligned above your ankles. And then bend a little more so the chest and ribs come near the thighs, and we'll inhale, reach the hands behind the back, interlacing the fingers like you're holding someone's hand, and then elongating the inner arms, stretching the elbows out. And if this is difficult, then you can hold a strap with your hands parallel. If the palms will close, then we bring them together. If not, no need to struggle with that. Take 2 more breaths here, freeing the neck so the head hangs heavy. Encouraging the breath across the shape, particularly into the shoulders. Shoulder blades or scapulas draw slightly towards each other. Draw the sternum down, away from the navel, rather than curling it in. And then take 5 breaths, slowly straightening your legs. If when you straighten the legs, you find that your tailbone starts to tuck in a cat tilt-like manner, then you may get more benefit from the pelvic tilt by bending your knees in your forward bends, both seated and standing. Last breath here. And we'll draw the arms back, the chest up on the in-breath to come up to standing, plugging in the feet, stacking the bones of the hips above the ankles, the shoulders above the hips. And we'll step the feet together and bring the hands to Namaste. Aware the breath is staying consistent, whether we're in a neutral shape of Tadasana or a challenging asana. Let your breath be your barometer for how you're working with yourself. And the values that we've accrued in attentively honoring our edge in the yin, we want to carry now into the yang. And let's take a breath in together and Om, reflecting that sound that names the unnameable. We'll exhale the arms to our sides. Keeping the kneecaps lifted, we'll inhale, draw the arms to the sides and up. If the gaze goes up, keeping the hips back under the shoulders. And then exhale, sweeping wide as you dive forward, not with the chin raised, but the beam out the crown of the head. So your spine moves in unity down. Inhale, lift the chest, draw the shoulders back. Lift the kneecaps. Exhale, step the right foot back in a low lunge, bringing the knee down and resting the toes. Press down through the feet, draw the inner groins towards each other. Inhale, take the arms to the sides and up. Right buttock strong. Exhale, drawing the tailbone toward the pubic bone, the floating ribs back. Inhale, extending up through side ribs, sides of the arms and wrists. Stay and exhale. Energy line through the tailbone and out through the fingertips. Inhale, extending straight up. Energy through the ceiling, and then exhale, sweeping wide. We'll bring the fingers in line with the toes, and then inhale, stepping that foot back in plank so your hands are under your shoulders. And exhale to chaturanga. Put your knees down if your upper body tends to collapse. Shoulders back. Then pubic bone down, shalabhasana. Lift the chest and the legs. Inhale. Exhale, ground the fingers and roll the shoulders and elbows back. Hug the legs together. Turn the knees toward the floor, and then inhale. The thighs and chest both move up like a boat. And exhale, the forehead down, tucking the toes, fingers still flat. Inhale, straight up to plank or back to your knees, keeping your shoulders back. Down dog as you exhale. A few breaths there. And in the first down dog, you may enjoy bending the knees slightly so that your emphasis on that pelvic tilt and the sacrum dipping can be encouraged before the hamstrings warm up, which tends to drag the pelvis into too much of a cat tilt for some. Take one more breath here, elongating the hips while tilting the pelvis forward. And then inhale, stepping the right foot between the hands. Lightly placing it to the floor consciously, and exhale the back knee down, the toes down, as if your shin and foot are just one long foot. Press it into the floor. And then we'll inhale with the core support of the groins hugging in, the mula lifted, arms reach. Either gazing straight ahead, or if the gaze turns up, we don't want to strain the neck. We actually lift the trapezius and rest the head back on the shoulder muscle. The underarms interested in coming slightly around towards each other to lengthen the trapezius. One more in-breath, and then exhale, sweeping the arms wide. Tucking the back toes, inhale, step forward, lining the toes as if you have 1 foot, 10 toes, so big toes touch. Exhale as you fold. If you tend to tuck your tailbone, then bend the knees. Inhale, reach the arms out, come all the way out. And exhale, sweeping the arms back and around like windmills and shoulder openers each time. Same thing again, low lunge. Inhale, reaching up. Groins stay drawn back, and then as we exhale, they recede further back to draw us forward. Sit bones lifting after halfway down. Keep them lifted, and inhale, raise the chest. Widen the collarbones. Exhale, step the left foot back. You can put padding back under the back knee if that feels appropriate. Inhale the hands to namaste this time. And then deepening the lunge, but instead of leaning forward, keep the shoulders kind of back above the hips. Inner thighs as if they're magnets. They're kind of suctioning toward each other. Perineum lifted. And then we'll take a lunge twist, exhaling your left elbow over to the outside of your right knee, your right elbow straight up, palms pressing. And then inhaling, as you press the top hand into the bottom, you turn the chest toward the right, weighting the hips into the lunge and angling the spine kind of upright. So we're not leaning down, we're twisting around. Targeting the breath into where sensations occur as the poses change. So now into the rhomboids, the mid-back, between the spine and scapula. One more in-breath, kind of widen both collarbones. Exhale, good, bringing the hands down. Inhale to plank, stepping the foot back. Kind of lining your body up like Tadasana. And then exhale, lower down, keeping the tailbone in, the shoulders back. Good. Then Shalabhasana again, go to the floor. Inhale, lift your chest and legs. This time exhale, spread your legs wide and take 3 breaths in a wide leg Shalabhasana, which will emphasize strengthening your piriformis, side of the hips, which is very important to prevent sciatica. That piriformis is buoyant and strong. Exhale, bringing the legs together and lowering down. Tucking the toes. Inhale, going straight up to plank or first back to your knees, and then exhale, downward facing dog. Sliding the toes just slightly closer after we've been in Shalabhasana. Take 5 breaths here, widening through the shoulders, lengthening up away from the wrists and elbows, and tilting the sit bones up, allowing the sacrum to dip down toward the spine. Watch that you're not bowing the front ribs, bringing them slightly toward the midline, and freeing the neck so the head hangs down. Lengthen the inner arm line. If you have tighter shoulders, drawing the outer elbows in while keeping the shoulders wide away from the neck. If you have bowy elbows, then drawing the inner elbows slightly out toward the outer elbows. Suctioning in the hands. And we'll take one more breath here. Take one more breath here, lifting the shoulders and elbows off the wrists. Remember, we don't want to collapse into the joints. And then inhale, stepping the left foot forward. Bringing the back knee down as you exhale. Conscious of the back toes pressing into the floor, inhale the hands to namaste. And the tailbone encouraged toward the pubic bone in a cat tilt, because it is a back bend, but we don't encourage an excessive one. Shoulders down the back, and like the beam of light out the crown of the head and down into the earth through your tailbone. Energy lines engaged. Taking a breath in, we want to be conscious in the feet, so as you go to the twist, you feel stable. So your back foot pressing and take your right elbow over. Yeah. Even the littlest toe pressing down will help keep us from feeling wobbly. Your left ankle just rooted. Plug in the inner left foot and toe, big toe. And then as you're twisting over, instead of toward the floor, think of kind of coming up. Exactly. As if we want more and more sunlight between our ribs and thigh. Not excessively turning with your chin. The neck moves easier than the thoracic. So slight gaze to the left, but emphasis on the chest. One more inhale. And then exhale, bringing the hands down, tucking the back toes. And inhale, stepping forward. Meet the front foot and exhale, Uttanasana, keeping the neck long, the shoulders broad. Good. Inhale will come up, the movement matching the breath. Exhale, sweeping the arms, tailbone straight down, pointing at the heels, hands to Namaste. Take a breath. And then Surya Namaskar with high lunge. Inhale, reaching your arms up. Hugging the inner ankles if you have high arches. And then exhale, floating down with the legs strong. Unless you bend the knees when your hands come down. Inhale, lift the heart. Widen the shoulders. Exhale, step the right foot back in a high lunge, which means we keep the knee lifted. And the tendency is to drop lower on the right hip. So just putting weight to the left hip equally. And that same core support of the groins hugging toward each other and lifting. So the back toes tucked under and the back knees straight. Then putting the right hand right under the right shoulder or the shoulder to the outside. And inhale, the left arm straight up in a lunge twist. So the back leg lifted. Yeah, and then the left side lift. If the left shoulder feels constricted, then just put the left hand, and use you for that, to the hip. Just turning the chest to the left without struggling to raise the arm. Like an upper back bend, spine toward the chest. Inhale, and then exhale, bringing both hands down. Use the inhale to step back to plank. And the exhale to lower down with your chest slightly lifted like a back bend, but your navel in, so not a lower back bend. Then cobra pose. Go to the ground and inhale, bend the arms, strong legs. Stay and exhale. Hug the inner thighs. On the inhale, bring your chest forward as if your shoulders are pulling back. And then exhale the forehead down. Tuck the toes. Inhale to the knees or straight up. Exhale, downward facing dog. 3 breaths here. And just as in the yin we were putting pressure on the joints, now in the yang we're conscious of engaging muscle and keeping the bones then closer together. So instead of feeling like you're hugging your elbows, inner elbow bones way in, if you have over-flexible elbows, instead you'll want to bring your inner elbows slightly toward the outer elbows so that the arms are actually straight. On the inhale, step the right foot between the hands. High lunge, keeping the back leg lifted. A few breaths there. As if your back calf wants to go visit your heel. Your weight even across the roots of the toes rather than leaning onto the tips of the toes. And then we'll weight both hips evenly, hugging the inner thighs, and put our left palm right under our shoulder, or taking our shoulder to the outside of the knee and putting the palm outside of the foot. Inhale, the right hand to the hip, or straight up. Hugging in your inner left thigh, as if your left ribs are going to come over towards it. Then the sternum toward the opposite side of the room, so twisting and lengthening. And then exhale, hugging in here, bringing the right hand down. Taking the left hand to the other side if it was outside. Inhale, step forward, step to the front of your mat, line the toes, spreading them, and then exhale, diving straight down, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale, lift the chest, come all the way up to standing. Arms to the sides. Exhale, arms sweep back and around. Keeping the underarms lifted, the chest up, the hands at the heart. Take a breath. Be serious. Exhaling, bending the knees, fingertips touch. Inhale, sweeping up. Exhale as you dive toward the thighs, taking the hips up, the legs towards straight. Inhale, lift the heart, lift the sit bones, stepping or jumping back as you exhale and lowering down on that same breath. Chaturanga. Inhale, cobra for some. Up dog if you can roll your arm bones back above your wrists, and then exhale, downward facing dog. Stepping your right foot between your hands, ground your left heel. Inhale, reach your arms to Virabhadrasana, one pose. And then exhale and come back down, stepping your right foot back, lowering. Inhale as you lift the heart in cobra or up dog, both poses, shoulders back. Exhale, downward facing dog. The left foot immediately steps so that as we're inhaling, we can raise our arms, square the hips as you tuck the tail, press here, and then exhale, sweeping wide. Spread your fingers and step back. You can take an extra breath if you've run out. You inhale there and then you exhale lower. Looking forward. Inhale into the back bend, conscious of the legs, really strong. And then exhale, down dog. Pause for 3 breaths. Suction in your hands. Like they're really centrally plugged into the floor. And then notice if your weight falls to the outer wrist, plug in between the thumb and forefinger. The deltoids can hug in using the triceps more than the elbow bones to hold you out. Exhale, bend your knees. Inhale, step or hop forward. And then exhale as you fold, keeping that length you had from arching. Bend your knees for chair pose. Inhale, reach the arms up, hug your inner knees, weight your sit bones, and then straighten the legs, exhaling. The hands draw down and back to the heart. And now even though the heart rate is fairly sped up, slow the breath rhythm so it's consistent. This is what will build our endurance. One more. Exhale, bend. Inhale and reach. Lengthening the waist, and then exhale, diving down as you take Uttanasana, inner thighs hug. Inhale, lift the heart, shoulders back. Exhale, step or jump. Land springy in Chaturanga on the roots of the toes rather than the tips. The back bend is an inhale, strong legs, hip bones lift. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Pause here. And we'll vary it a little. We'll take the right leg toward the sky first for 3 breaths. So, Ekapada Adho Mukha Svanasana. One leg in down dog is lifted, one is grounded. But we don't make the ribs uneven. They both are straight like the shoulders. Yeah. Last in-breath, elongate the inner leg line, and then exhale, step through. Virabhadrasana 1, 3 breaths. Plug in your back foot, press it into the ground, and inhale, reach out. This exaggerates the back bend, so we draw the hips slightly back. Energetically, we spiral that left hip forward, but still tuck the tail. Yeah. And then exhale, come down. Inhale as your right foot goes back. And then chaturanga with either the knees down or straight legs, tailbone tucked. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Fingers grounded. Exhale, down dog. Moving the navel back in transition. Now the left leg rises on the inhale. 3 breaths there. And again, moving with this sense of appropriate edge in each shape so there's no inner friction with your natural limitations. Exhale, step lightly through. So nothing is mechanical. The foot is felt touching the floor, and then we inhale. 0, 1, pose. 3 breaths. Where as we square and tuck, it's really interesting in the hips for everyone. So your breath pulsing there, the mula lifted. And just this freedom of extension through the torso, the sideways. And then exhale, the arms sweep. And inhale, step back. Exhale, lower down like a stick bug, straight line, not the back arched. Inhale. Now as you take the back bend, drop the tailbone. And then exhale, downward facing dog. 3 breaths here. On your next exhale, bend your knees. Look at your landing spot. And inhale, step or hop, lifting from the mula, from the root. And the inhale. Lift the chest once landed. Exhale, as you fold, lengthen down with a nice width in the neck and shoulders. Bend the knees for Utkatasana, where we'll stay 5 breaths. So inhale, reaching up, feet and knees together. And then exhale, bend the elbows, pull the scapulas down the back, and we can take the gaze up. Inhale, take the arms up as you look down, squatting a little bit more. And then exhale, bend the elbows. And if your neck's okay, we can look up. Inhale, the arms move up. We bring the weight to the heels. And exhale, elbows bend. We lift the chest and chin. Inhale, arms up. Weight the hips. Exhale, bend. Last time. Bring the shoulders down and back. Inhale, straighten the legs, arms up. Exhale, standing tall, hands come around and down to namaste. It's finding the center of your balance, aligning that plumb line of Tadasana, and connect with the center of your breath. And then we'll do 3 rounds of the moving Utkatasana with Uttanasana. So we'll inhale and sweep the arms to the sides and up, standing tall. And then on the exhale, just parallel arms, bend the knees into chair pose. Your sit bones weighted, not tucked. Stay in inhale, just kind of lengthening the waist. And then exhale halfway down. Your arms are out but above your ears. Reach on the in-breath. And then exhale, the hands down, the hips up in Uttanasana. Bend the knees, inhale halfway up. Extend the arms out at ear height. Pause and exhale, the shins toward the calves. Then inhale, the torso up in Utkatasana. Pause there and exhale. Inhale, standing all the way upright. And exhale, sweep the arms. Hands can come around, namaste. And then inhale, reach up again. Plug in the feet and exhale, bend the knees. So you squat down as low as you can with your weight in your heels. Then inhale and just upper body leans a little back. And then we exhale and fold halfway down. Just strengthen the back, this pose. Inhale, extend out through the arms. And exhale, fold and straight. Shoulders wide. Bend the knees, inhale, halfway up. The ribs near the thighs, exhale. Sit bones drawing back. Inhale, chair pose, torso up. Pause and exhale. Just kind of hugging between the knees, maybe feet together. Inhale, straighten all the way up. And exhale, sweeping the arms wide. Hands to namaste. And then last one. Inhale, reaching up. Feet together. And then exhale, Utkatasana. Yeah, great for strengthening your knees. Inhale here. And exhale halfway down. Good for strengthening your back. Hold here. Inhale. Torso lower, honey. Exhale, fold. And straighten the legs. Halfway up, inhale, where you're parallel to the floor with your spine. Pause and exhale. Inhale your torso upright and pause here in chair to exhale. Inhale, standing all the way up, and exhale, the hands to namaste. Take an in-breath. Hopping or stepping to your right as you exhale. Trikonasana distance, have a block there if you use one for this pose. Inhale, arms up, shoulder height, and exhale, reach out to the right, traditional Trikonasana. Left hand above the right. If you can say there's traditional, there's so many ways to do this pose. But basically, shoulders in line with the hips, obviously. But watching if you tend to hyperextend your knee, that you might instead bring your calf a little towards your shin, so the weight isn't just in the heel of the foot, but more centered, and then you're not overtaxing the knee. Then let's turn the palm toward the floor and extend the arm over along the ear line. Look down if and when you need to. And take 4 more breaths there, turning your left hip up as you reach through your left wrist. The left buttock strong, the legs strong. And over on that angle. Then press into the right foot. Inhale, come up. Turn the left foot out, the right foot in. Inhale, lift the chest. Energy out past the fingertips. Lift the kneecaps. Exhale out to your left. Turn the right hip up. Put the hand to the block if the hip tends to fold forward. This is a hip opening standing pose, so let it affect your hips. Then draw the kidneys instead of into a deep back arch, which can be our tendency if we're back bend bodies. Draw the kidneys slightly back, but open the chest. Turn the palm toward the floor and inhale, extend your arm out straight from the right hip and roll the hip toward the sky. Tuck the left buttock underneath your body. Lift the quadriceps. Look down if your neck is straining, but if you are looking up, angle your chin more towards your underarm. Yeah. Push into your left foot, inhale, come up. And exhale, turn the left toes in, hands to the hips. Prasarita Padottanasana. Inhale, draw the tailbone down, the chest up. Exhale, draw the hips back, folding, noticing the sacrum drawing down toward the lumbar and then dropping your hands. Inhale, lift the chest. Keep the legs strong for knee strength. Exhale as you fold. Instead of folding the chest inward, think of an energy line from the pubic bone toward the top of the collarbone, going straight down. So if your head is crashing to the floor, bring your legs closer. If your head is way away, you can take the legs slightly wider. But if you start to feel like you're slipping, bend your knees. If you're cat tilting, bend your knees. And lift your shoulders away from your ears. Elbows parallel to the shoulders. Check your breath here. Flushing your awareness through the shape without straining anywhere. Suction up and in through the groins, and that will also ground you. Strong adductors. Inhale, lift the chest. Did that make a difference, that lifting? And exhale, the hands to the hips. Still drawing in through the inner thighs, so we feel planted. Inhale, come up through the chest. And exhale, turn the right foot out, the left foot in. Vira 2, so you may need a little width there. Inhale, your arms to the sides, shoulder height, palms down. Exhale, bend the right knee, angling the knee to the outside of your right ankle. Both legs are strong. The back leg has this pillar of strength while you press down into your back foot. Draw the left hip slightly back so it's under the shoulder, and then inhale once more. And as you exhale, come to elbow to knee pose, the forearm to the thigh, left arm straight up. Soft fist with the right hand. Either stay with this or bring your hand to the floor, to the outside, or to the block behind the ankle. Then inhale, your left arm reaches across by your ear, and as you exhale, bend the elbow and look down and to your right. Roll your right shoulder back. Inhale, straighten the arm, turn the gaze up, extend from the left hip to the fingers, and then exhale, bend and look down. I'm counting these in 5-second breath rhythms. Inhale, extend, so your breath is rhythmic and slow. Exhale, bend, bring that right buttock bone under you. Inhale, extend, turn the chest up. Exhale, bend, last time. Yeah, it's nice for the shoulder and neck, the movement. Inhale, reach out and just take 3 breaths in the pose stationary. But the attention continually mobilized through the shape. Hug your inner thighs so it doesn't feel like your feet are sliding, but they're suctioning toward each other. And then pushing into the right foot, inhale to Vira 2, and then straighten the leg, and exhale, turn the left hip and foot out, the right foot in. Inhale. Legs strong, and exhale as you bend the knee. Watch the tendency to kind of bend the hip down and the ribs over, as if you want to keep your spine line centered between your 2 legs. And as you drop the tail, I know in my body it's real easy to then push your right hip kind of forward. It's much more interesting in the groin and psoas if I keep the hip back. And then take a breath in, just this joyous lift in the torso. And then exhale, elbow to knee. Just to feel that shape. Inhale. And you can stay there or exhale your left fingers to the floor, your right arm across. Inhale, turn the chest up, the left buttock bone under. And exhale, bend the elbow and look down and to the left with your neck. Inhale, straighten the arm out. Roll the pinky toward the floor. And then exhale, bend and look down again, lifting out of that left shoulder a bit. Inhale, reaching out, extending as you look up. And then exhale, bending, but still rolling the chest up even though you look down. Once more. Inhale, reach out. And exhale, bend. Feel the shoulder drawing way back and down. Then inhale, reach out and hold 3 breaths. Look down or up. Engage the inner thigh toward the bone. And then toward each other. Yeah. Extend the arm straight out from the hip. The underarm looking toward the floor. Yeah. Press into your left foot. Inhale, Vira 2. And then you straighten. Turn the left toes in and exhale, your hands clasping behind the back. Prasarita Padottanasana. Inhale, lift the thighs like you're pulling up tights. Lift the chest. And then exhale, draw the chest through the legs. The arms reach away. And notice how you may have clasped the fingers the same as when we did this practice in our first Uttanasana. If that's true, then shift. Put your other forefinger in front from earlier in the practice. The neck is free, and the breath draped across the backs of the legs. And if you're really flexible through the hamstrings, we can tend to overwork them. So we want to slightly draw the tailbone toward the floor again. And then you feel a nice space along the sacral region again. Inhale, come all the way up, lifting the chest. Pause and exhale, releasing the hands. Let's face the right leg, turn the right foot out, left foot in. The hips squaring and the hands either back in reverse namaste. If the wrists or shoulders struggle with that, just reach around and grab your forearms. Then drawing your tailbone into your body, inhale, lift your chest, put weight into your back leg and foot, and then exhale, draw the right groins back. As you fold forward, bring the left hip with you and extend across the front leg while keeping weight in the back leg and foot. So the front leg isn't alone in the action. If you find your pelvis now has tucked into a cat tilt, then go ahead and bring the hands down on either side of the foot and bend the knee so that it's not excessive on the hamstrings. And that way you'll have more control of tilting your hips toward the floor. And with slow, conscious action of taking the leg a little straighter without the hips receding. If your hands are still back, let's bring them down on the next exhale and take a moving standing splits where you inhale, step into your right foot and fingers with weight. Take the left leg up to as high as it's willing to go, keeping the hips only slightly higher on the left, then exhale and bring it back to the floor. It'll just touch the ground, no weight to it, and inhale, take it back up. Keep the right sit bone above the right heel, so that means a little to the left, and bring it down and up, another 4 breaths. So this is utilizing movement to increase circulation in an area, so range of motion is intended, and then we'll hold static to accumulate the strength in that area once circulation has been increased. So the next time it's up, hold it up. You can reach for the right ankle with your right hand. The left hip just slightly raised above the right. By drawing that sit bone back. Roll your left ribs down. Last in-breath, reaching out and up through energy in the foot. And then stepping back down to Parshvottanasana. Inhale as you lift the chest. Hug your inner thighs and the mula. Exhale as you draw down, elongating across the leg. Hands to the hips. Inhale, lift the chest, come up, pressing your back heel down. Turn all the way around to the other side as you exhale. Look down so your front heel is aligned with the beginning of your back arch. And then position your hands. It's a nice shoulder opener if it's not a strain for your wrists or shoulders. Then tuck the tailbone, lift the thighs. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, reach out over the left leg, guiding the groins on the left back and the right hip forward. Good. Lift the elbows if your hands are in prayer and press the palms together. Relax the neck, but stay strong through the feet, the weight across the inner and outer edges. Flesh out the shape with breath, body awareness, acknowledging the limitations and creating variations when necessary. Bring your hands to the floor if they're still back. Stepping for the moving standing splits to the left foot. Inhale, taking the right leg up, where you just notice you can't go any further unless you strain, and you resist the strain and just come back down. That's 1, and just do 4 more movements with each breath. Up on the inhale and down on the exhale. The standing leg is doing vrikshasana, tree pose, so it's staying strong. And the left sit bone a little to the right as you raise the leg, so it doesn't go away from above the heel. Yeah. The neck and shoulders are soft, so is the jaw. Then the next time it's raised, after the 5 movements, hold it for 5 or 6 breaths. The chest extends down without any feeling of upper body tension. And the right ribs roll down. Ekapada Uttanasana. Great. Last in-breath, just energy through the beautiful shape. And then exhale, stepping back, Parsvottanasana. Inhale, lengthen your chest, pull back through your left hip. And then exhale, extend out, plugging the root of the big toe to the floor. Hands to the hips, push into the back and front foot to inhale up. And then step your back foot to meet your front as you exhale. Tadasana, hands in Namaste. Just feel the effects of energy pulsing through the lower body, through the standing poses. And then we'll inhale and sweep the arms to the sides and up. The hips are right above the ankles. And then we'll exhale, draw the hips back to fold forward. But once we're down, we draw them above the ankles again, and then inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, step the right foot back. Inhale, step the left foot back. And bring the knees down. Knees to the floor for dolphin pose. We'll put the elbows under the shoulders. So having emphasized energy in the lower body, we'll put some attention in the upper body. Lift the shoulders away from the elbows instead of collapsing. You can feel the difference. Tuck the toes. Inhale, lift the hips like down dog, but on your forearms, but stepping your feet a little bit closer in. Taking the weight up away from the elbows, so elongate your biceps and triceps, your arm muscles. Free the neck so it just dangles. And then if your shoulders are more mobile part of your body, not to draw your chest so far back. That will be what's easy and a tendency to hang out in the joints. Instead, bring your shoulders a little forward and then lengthen up, staying quite relaxed at the base of the neck. It's like you shake your head so it's really free. If your sit bones are curling into cat tilt, bend your knees and peek them toward the sky. 2 more breaths. Come down if it becomes a pose that makes your breath shortened or jagged. Shoulders back if they tend to be more inelastic region of the body. Yeah, come down. Take 3 breaths in child's pose. Feeling the circulation of prana in the upper body. For the sake of upright, balanced posture, we have to regularly pull on the muscles that then tug on the bones and keep the bones strong in the upper body. So when you're ready to move again, let's take dolphin again, or arm balance, Pincha Mayurasana. If you like to do Pincha Mayurasana and you need some props, you can use a wall for balance. You can use a belt around your elbows or a block between your hands. Otherwise, strengthening the upper body in the simple pose of dolphin. I often do that just each day. I'll be your wall, Ivy. Keep lifting out of the shoulders so you feel like your underarms grow long. Pressing the feet toward the ceiling. Yes. And the gaze steady. And as you bring your tailbone slightly in, you can lift up out of the shoulder slightly, right there. Now I'll just slightly move away with that same inner feeling. Last breath, inhale. And then lower down as you exhale. Spiral your breath into the upper body that was just asked more of from the last pose. Continue to draw in at the root. And to always make daily choices when there are variations suggested according to the quality of being on that day. Some days we want the more exuberant shapes. Other days it's much more appropriate not to tax the system. So what would bring harmony and balance today is the inquiry we want to invest in each time we practice. And then bringing your hands forward and coming onto your belly. For Shalabhasana, a daily pose I find for strengthening the back, but in today's variation also to strengthen the back of the knees. You can choose arm positions of the hands in front would be the least work for the back, upper back, more just for the lower. A little more work when the hands are here, and a little more if we bring the hands back here each time. So you choose. Keep both hip bones to the floor, tuck your tailbone, and as you inhale, lift your chest and your right leg. Pause and exhale there. Inhale, bend the knee, bring the toes pointed toward the buttocks, and then exhale, we straighten while lifting chest and thigh, and at the end of it, lower. And then we switch. Inhale, lift the left leg and chest. Pause there and exhale. Weight the left hip. Yeah. Inhale, bend the knee. This is what stimulates the back of the knee. And then exhale, we straighten while keeping it lifted, and then lower. Inhale, the right leg lifts. Exhale there, straight leg. Elbows slightly in, shoulder width. If they're in cobra. Inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten, and lower. Inhale, lift the left side. Denny, let's bring the hands a little forward this way. On the next inhale, bend. Yeah, you can kind of suction them back towards you. And then exhale, lift the chest and thigh, and then lower. Inhale, lift the right leg and chest. Hugging the out. You're exhaling as you pause. Then as you inhale, you bend. Angling the knees slightly into the left. Good. Exhale, straighten while dropping the tailbone, and then everything down. Inhale, lift the left leg and chest. Energy through the foot. Exhale. And kind of bringing the wrists a little bit up. Inhale, bend. Elbows in if they're that way. Exhale, straighten. It's like pranayama in motion, lower down. So not mechanical, but conscious. One more. Inhale, lift the right leg and chest. Pause and exhale. Inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten, but don't lower. That's one. Do 4 more on the right. Inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten. Just staying in the same shape, bending and straightening each breath. 3 more. Angle the right knee a little bit inward so the inner thighs hug. Yeah. And if the hands are clasped, just slightly above the torso and back. Yeah. Last one. And suction your elbows and scapulas back. Straighten and lower that side. Take a breath before we do last one on the other side. Good. Inhale, lift the left leg and the chest. Pause and exhale. Inhale, bend. As you bend, you also angle the chest up, and as you straighten, the chest stays up. Yeah. Bend. Straighten. 5-second rhythms of breath. Don't over-struggle, just doing it is enough. Trying to do it kind of gracefully, without any inner friction. If every movement is with the whole totality of one's being. Even simple actions like this, we can struggle with if inattention sets in. It's just the movement in and out stimulates the tissues in the back of the knee, one of the places it's held. And then on the last one, we lift the top of the thigh and then exhale, lower. Last one before we switch, where we do both legs together. That was the last side to side. So hand position, if you want it to be the easiest, then just bring your hands here now. Inhale, lift both legs and have them together. Exhale. Then you keep the toes together and you inhale, bend. As you exhale, you squeeze the inner legs. Inhale, lift the chest and thighs. And then exhale, straighten and lower down. And then we'll take the right arm along the left shoulder line to roll over onto our backs and bring the knees into the chest. Just drawing the sacrum down. Mm-hmm. And one more breath here. Just recollect your interest in compassionate attention and watching the habits of the body and mind. And in seeing the habits and diminishing their power to constrict us. Is that okay? And then we'll take the feet down for bridge pose, Setu Bandha, but wide stance. To target the effect more at strengthening the piriformis, which we open so much in the hips, in the yin, ligament-wise. We want to strengthen the muscles around it in the yang. So feet as wide as they're willing to go and under the knees. Exhale and tuck the tailbone, cat tilt. And then inhale, press down through your feet, take your hips up. Let's move in and out 5 times. So exhale, roll down, curling down in a cat tilt. And then inhale, slowly back up. And 4 more rounds with your own breathing rhythm. The feet just straight ahead. Yeah, and if it's awkward on the knees, sometimes your feet are too far back. So we'll bring them here. If it's awkward on the back, sometimes it's because the feet are too far forward. We want the shins perpendicular to the floor. As you lift, engage the inner thighs, even though you're keeping your knees wide. And as you lower, still that inner thigh attention. After 5 in and out, then hold the hips up for 5 breaths or so. And you're taking the feet just outside your mat, Chuck. Yes. Just that distance, I find, gets right into feeling it in the outer hips. And then you can draw your spine, the thoracic spine, toward the chest. Drawing the arm bones down. tucking the tailbone and lifting the hips. Hugging in at the groins. Face and jaw soft. Each breath as we press through the feet, we encourage the quadricep strength and lifting the hips for the lower back strength. Last inhale, hugging in here, and then moving the shoulders wide so you can exhale and curl down, cat tilting, upper to mid to lower back. Bring the fingers interlace behind the head. Elbows to the sides. Bring the knees into the chest. Inhale the right leg toward the sky. And exhale the right elbow over to the left knee while you lower the right leg. Keep your body here and inhale, lift the right leg back up, keeping your torso here for 4 more lifts and lowers. Exhale, the leg lowers. Energy through the foot. Inhale as it raises. 3 more. So strengthening the abdominals and the hip flexors, all these core regions for support and energy when we go to sit in meditation. Slightly inwardly rotated in the inner thigh of the right leg. And kind of hugging the elbows towards each other. Lifting off the left shoulder slightly. And then you inhale and lay back, switch the legs, and exhale over to the other side. Moving the leg with breath. It lowers on the exhale, it raises on the inhale. And always to feel stable, we can feel this inner hug right at the groins, so your right knee isn't flopping out to the side. Energy through that foot, it's right through there. Instead of flex, feel the ball of the foot. Yes, spread the toes out. Good. Instead of laying back on your upper back, kind of curl forward. Last time. Inhale, the leg raises. We lay back. Put the feet to the floor as you exhale. Taking a breath here. And then taking bridge pose again with support, supported bridge, or Urdhva Dhanurasana, wheel. So again, you make the appropriate choice for you today, regardless of what you did before. In supported bridge, we can put that block right under the sacrum. The feet right under the hips. In wheel, we can take bridge first, get set up, strong in the legs, connected to our hands and feet, and then inhale up. So taking the chest and drawing it forward while taking the tailbone the other direction. Spiral the underarms towards each other, toward the chest. Come towards me more groins, honey. Come towards me. Hug the inner thighs as if you're holding a block between your adductors. Hug in where you feel me. 2 more breaths where your inhale is elongated to 6, even 7 seconds long. Flush the breath through the shape, grounding through the inner hands, freeing the neck, yes. And then when you come down, look toward the ceiling and use your exhale, keeping your elbows shoulder width. You land on your upper back and curl down. You never crash down or come down too rapid that you're not conscious of flowing the body to the floor. Once down, we'll take the feet toward the sky and then wide. Urdhva Mukha Bhavishta Konasana. Hands just below the knees. Inhale. And then as you exhale, slowly close the legs with some resistance that your hands are using. Inhale, widen. Exhale, close. So hands right below the knees or right at them so that you're strengthening the inner adductors that go into the knees. We'll do here about 10 at your own breathing rhythm. You can flex the feet, so pulling the toes down. So remember, we did a lot of standing poses and Utkatasana poses to strengthen the top of the knees by using the quadriceps. Then the back of the knees in our Shalabhasana variation. And now with this movement of the thighs, this helps strengthen the inner knees so that our knees feel supported and stable in our structure and don't talk back so much in meditation practice. Keeping the sacrum down, the shoulders and chin down. After 10 times or so, for some their edge isn't met until 20 or 30, so we have to have this be appropriate. You hit your edge, meaning you start to feel like it's difficult to go again, and you do maybe 2 beyond that. Encourage the tissues to be a little stressed beyond their normal use so they grow back stronger. And then leave them wide. And strengthening the belly, which helps protect our lower backs, we'll inhale and reach through with our hands and wrists just above our thighs. Unless you need to support your neck, then put one or both hands behind your head. Move the pubic bone toward the belly so you're not at all arching your lower back. That's very important. So slightly this way. Energy through the inner leg line and out through the feet. And if you're very flexible, hugging your legs slightly up from their wide position. One more in-breath. Lay your head back, but keep your legs wide for 5 breaths. Hands to the calves, ankles, or feet. Sacrum down. Moving the feet toward the shoulder line and down. Flexing that. Those hands, the inner legs, see? Chin slightly down. Exactly. Toes toward the knees. And from the groins, a lengthening towards your ankles. Yes. Last 2 breaths. So we're lengthening after strengthening the inner thighs. Good. Last inhale. They do start to shake, a number of us occasionally. The knees into the chest. Exhaling. And then we can choose for our inversion today either shoulder stand or Viparita Karani or passive legs up the wall. In Viparita Karani, you can often just stay as you are, put your hands to your hips, and take your legs up. I'll have to demonstrate it because of the monitor. In shoulder stand, we often will need to put some blankets so that we can keep some space under C7. Viparita Karani can be done with a block under the sacrum or with the hands holding the hips. But it is a nice dog tilt. So it's like the belly makes a soft floating lake for the organs. And our wrists do get stronger with practice, but occasionally you may have to move your hand position. Elbows are in with the shoulder width. And right, and we can slide hands underneath the neck, so there's no pressure there. And the real place to notice if there's tension is the trapezius, if it's rigid. If you're doing shoulder stand and it's rigid, it's not useful. It should be quite buoyant to the touch, springy. And it usually becomes that way much easier with Viparita Karani. That's it. Great. Good. Let's be here 2 more minutes. In either shoulder stand or Viparita Karani, moving the thoracic spine toward the chest. Yeah. Moving the groins kind of into the body in this one. So it's almost like bridge pose right there. And go inward while lifting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With this pose, you might even take a little less pressure if you lower your hips into your hands. Just slide your hands towards your hips. Right now they're on your lower back. You can even, even sliding the hips even lower, so you're not holding so much here, but and then let your hips kind of sit back. I'm actually going to get you a block so you can experience that pose with support. Okay, bring your hips down, Chuck. And then take them over the block. Is that okay? Here, I'll put a padding underneath it since it's wood. Is that good? And then your hands can just rest on the ground, palms open. And the upper body doesn't have to work. And the benefits of the inversion of releasing the dragging effect on the arteries and veins. And this is soft. And now just stabilize your breath. Slow, 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 slow. Exactly. Great. Last 3 breaths here. Just letting this side ground a little bit. You might feel like your elbows are more narrow than they need to be, unusually enough. They've come more in than your shoulders. Last breath. Then we can either curl over into Karnapindasana briefly or just moving the block after coming down like bridge pose. Taking a breath in, if you're over in Karnapindasana, and then unraveling slowly using your abdominals, not your neck, using your hands and belly, not your neck, to roll down. Once your hips are down, cross your legs like you're sitting cross-legged. Bring your right knee over your left. For a laying spinal twist, inhale. Instead of the ankle, we'll cross the knees. And then drop the knees over to the left. Turning the chin to the right and to the left for the first 3 breaths. So any stagnation in the upper thoracic or cervical is relieved through some movement here before holding the pose still. So just an inhale, you move your head one way. An exhale, you move it the other way. And now if you want the twist to affect more along your spine, you can hug your knees closer in. Yeah. If you want it more, like as I said earlier in the yin, at the SI region, then you go lower. Different effects. You weight the right upper back and shoulder. You can guide the right hip slightly away from the waist and over. Then we'll inhale back center. Cross the other knee on top. And exhale to the other side, where for the first few breaths, again, just this gentle movement of the head, one way on an inhale, and the other way on an exhale. And guiding the left hip away from the waist, leaving the head away from the bent knees. Weighting the upper left back. Breathing through the shape, the diaphragm has more organs and tissue in the way, so it inwardly massages these regions if we take the time for the full Ujjayi style breathing. Maybe lopsided. And then inhale, come back center and hug both knees into the chest. Weighting the sacrum down. Relaxing the shoulders and chin down. And just gentle movements in circles so the upper and lower and side rims of the sacrum massaged into the floor. And take a deep breath in. And then we'll take the legs out for Shavasana, final relaxation. If your lower back has been feeling crunched at all or uncomfortable in laying flat, then put padding under your knees. If the neck has been feeling strained, put padding under your head so that the chin rests in the same plane as the forehead. Just a little bit. The arms comfortably away from the body. Palms up. Empty the legs and feet. And drop the mind from its activities of guiding the breath and the postures into that inner expanse. With the light of alert clarity still present even as we drop into resting the body, so that Shavasana becomes a preliminary pose to our seated meditation. Both the yin and yang asana styles are a cultivation of skillful attention and direction of prana flow, intentional moments and movements. Now with Shavasana and then meditation after, we let go of any manipulation or control, both in the body and the mind, while picking up our observing consciousness. our innate ability to simply notice our moment-to-moment experience, free of any reactivity for or against what we notice. Just allow spontaneous mindfulness to drench your being. And before leaving you silent, I'll share a poem of one of my teachers, Soni Rinpoche's words that encourage this inner luminosity to radiate within us. He says, "Let be in equanimity." And immediately there is a quality of freedom. Unbound by concepts, thoughts, or time. Unfettered by any view, dwelling, or prejudice. Totally free and all-pervasive. Belonging neither to one side or another, but not dull or vacant. Totally clear and awake, so that anything can unfold. Still, whatever takes place doesn't bind us. That is being free. And gently rolling to your one side and then sitting up. And so having freed the energy in the body some, it's a conducive environment for our meditation practice. So taking your timer now as the yoga asana ends and setting it for 30 minutes for a sitting practice. Tempering the habits of body and mind through our compassionate, diligent attention. hands together at the heart. And supplication to the masters